Hello Seawolves, and welcome back to the show after our small Christmas break. Thank you all very much for all of the well wishes. Me and my wife really enjoyed it. We had a great time visiting friends and family. I hope you had an equally nice time, and that in this tough kind of corona time when we don't get to see so many people or party with so many people, that you all had at least some good moments of seeing those people who are most important to you again. We certainly did, so I'm very thankful for that. And I say let's get right back into it. Let's start this few days until the next year in the absolute bestest way possible. And the bestest way possible, of course, can only really involve one thing, and that is an absolutely delicious cup of coffee. So I hope that you have something delicious in your pot. And I say, are you ready for this? Are you ready for this? I'm surely looking forward to this. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Here we go. Oh, very nice. It's nice to be back. And yeah, let's get right back into the sailing news. And I'm going to start actually every time until it actually starts with the Jules Verne, because unfortunately right now the status of Gitana, the one, and then the sound just died. But what I was saying is that at the moment there are no real update, in the sense that the status of the next attempt is still right now in black on their website, which means that for the next 92 hours they do not foresee that there will be any new chance to launch their new record attempt. And for the next 4 or 5 days, so we're not going to see them restart, and we'll have to wait and see if they update it. January generally is a very good month though for this type of attempt, so I hope they're definitely going to start and find a window, and I'll keep you updated if the status changes. Okay, then straight on to the Vendee Globe, because lots of interesting things have happened there also. But before we get into the actual race standing and details, lots of cool videos came out also during the Christmas period, so we'll definitely show some of those. But what I want to focus on for a moment first is the fact that like Cape of Good Hope and Cape Levin, the head of the fleet is now nearing another very crucial moment in the race, which is they are going to sail past Point Nemo. And we talked about it quite a few times already. I of course named it in one of the first videos where I talked through the entire around the world race course, link below in the description. And Point Nemo is, for those of you who don't know yet, the kind of the most lonely, most isolated place on Earth. So located right in the middle between kind of the west coast of New Zealand and on the other side, the east coast of South America, with the Cape Horn, of course, also there. And right in the middle of those two, right in the middle of the southern Pacific, we find Point Nemo. And that's basically so far away from any land mass that the closest other person, the closest other human to you are literally astronauts on the International Space Station. And so after having kind of gone past those other two major kind of event sites, Cape of Good Hope and Cape Levin, this will be kind of the last transition before they are heading for kind of the next big step, which will be Cape Horn. And so right now, in front of the fleet, Yannck Besthaven is more or less a day, maybe slightly more, depends a bit on the weather, away from crossing Point Nemo. And then of course the rest of the fleet, which are not that far behind and all huddled very close together at the moment, will be passing by there also. So the rest of the fleet is mostly going to be there in about a day or two or so, at least the head, the middle of the fleet, let's say. So pretty cool to see that they've made this giant landmark happen. And I also thought it would be kind of nice to talk about the fact how technology has changed. For us kind of sailing nerds, it's interesting to see. If you look at some of the footage from the last edition, for example, this what you're seeing right now, where a helicopter actually came out of New Zealand and made a flyby of his Hugo Boss in the last race. You can see the graininess of the footage. You can appreciate the fact that they had to send a helicopter out in order to make these shots, because we didn't really have drones. I mean, drones are a very recent technology, and though rudimentary they were there, they just weren't used in the last Vendee Globe race in any significant way, not in the way they are used now, with almost every captain, I think, having a drone on board. Also, if we look at the quality of the footage, that most of the sailors are actually just shooting on their phones and then sending over via satellite to their teams, who can then, you know, give them to people like me to show to you. It's quite a significant increase in the quality. And so this really is the first Vendee Globe race where, like the ocean race before, we get to see really crisp, high resolution, full color images right from the center of the Southern Ocean. And this essentially is going to be really the first time that we're going to see in a Vendee Globe race Point Nemo again. So literally the loneliest place on the planet, kind of the top of Mount Everest, let's say, but for the ocean, for the first time in super high resolutions, filmed by the captains themselves as they pass by this amazing location. And so that's quite a beautiful thing, that our satellite network has become so advanced that this is possible now. And yeah, let's appreciate a few nice videos that came out actually over the last 2 days. There were a few kind of cool duels going on with several boats so close to each other that they were kind of in a veering range, sometimes one of them a bit before, some of them a bit behind. And just thought that you know, let's take a look at some amazing videos from on board during the Christmas period.
It's Christmas Day and look what I got! Look at my present! It's like the most beautiful sailing day. I can't believe it. It's been like this all morning and I've been beating myself up all night because I jibed too early. I missed an opportunity. I was worried about the big front that's coming next. I thought it'd be safer to stay north, and I feel like I messed up. And then I get rewarded with this in the morning. It's the best present ever. So to everyone, everywhere, all over the world, I hope you can have a Christmas day like this. And if it's not sunny, I'm sending you some sunshine from the Southern Ocean. Merry Christmas!
Et voilà Boris, là c'est avec la qui est passé devant. Alors dès que ça mollit un peu, on repasse devant et un coup c'est lui, un coup c'est nous. Allez, à plus, ciao.
commence à rentrer fort là.
Quite nice to see, yeah? And another thing I wanted to talk about for a minute is that Boris, during these 2 days, uploaded a video because he was in very specific sailing circumstances, and I thought it would be interesting to talk about this with you guys because it's so showing for the function of the foils, really. Because, well, as you see the video here behind already while I'm talking, so basically what happened is that both Boris and Jean were in about 13 knots of wind, right? So they had 13 knots wind speed. And as I talked to you guys before about the foils, we know that the foils, they start working at around 13, 14 knots of actual boat speed, and then they raise the boat out of the water and they give the boat a boost of about 4 or 5 knots of speed, right? So as soon as they hit that speed of 13 or 14 knots, the foils start working, and with the same amount of power, all of a sudden they can go 16, 17, 18, you know, sometimes even faster than that. But you don't really often, during this race especially, have conditions where you consistently have 13 or 14 knots of wind. So basically you have a wind speed that is more or less the same as the perfect speed, the momentum at which the foils really start working, and you get kind of, at this particular point, quite an interesting effect, because the foils really work optimally. The boat is very steady, the sea state is relatively steady, so Boris was really foiling very, very nicely, keeping a more or less consistent boat speed of somewhere between 16 and 18 knots, let's say, or maybe 15 and 17 and a half knots or so, because the foils were obviously kind of giving him that kick. And so it's kind of an interesting thing, you know, for all of you that are really curious about how the foils work and what really the effect of the foils is, to really see it in action in such a clear way, and to really see kind of the clean effect. Because if there are, you know, lots of waves, or if the wind is, you know, 20 or 25 knots, the foils are also working, but of course they're kind of powering everything down, and like the effect is much less clear, because even without foils they'd be going 17 or 18 knots. So it's more like through the waves they have these kind of moments of acceleration, but you seldom really see these foiling boats, because that only really happens when they have 13, 14, maybe up to about 16 and a half knots or so of wind speed, when the sea state stays relatively calm enough to get a real glide on, you know, to have a relatively flat sea where the foils are really kicking the boat up and they're kind of enjoying these nice boat speeds, which are 5, 6 knots faster than the wind speeds.
Pushing! Really flying! Woo! Okay, that's the foiling, and then look here. We also have some match racing going on. Jean Le Cam.
So it's the real conditions where the foils really shine, and kind of in relatively light conditions give the boat a lot of extra speed. So it's kind of interesting to see, right? I think it really makes it visual. It really puts into a perfect kind of picture the function of it and kind of the optimal conditions. Because I get a lot of questions from you, like, what are like the optimal conditions for foiling? Well, that I think really is it. So Boris could have had a little bit more wind, up to maybe 16 knots, 17 knots or so. If the sea state is relatively flat, they still will have that same effect. But that, I think, is really the sweet spot, because the boat is not accelerating wildly and then decelerating again in waves. It's more or less just very nicely gliding along and just optimally foiling. So for those of you who kind of asked for that question and wanted to know really what it looks like, optimal foiling, I think that particular video is about as close to you get as a more or less perfect foiling situation. And it's interesting to see that because he was kind of he's all the time in this kind of friendly duel with Jean Le Cam, constantly overtaking each other, that that basically in this type of wind speeds, Boris is a lot faster, but then if the wind speed dips below those 13 knots and the foils don't work, then his foiling boat, of course, is again a lot slower than, he's about a knot slower than what Jean is doing. Then if you go over 16, 17 knots, there's again a period where as the foil starts slamming, etc., he may be more or less on an equal speed, let's say, and then if the wind gets really strong, then again, it's very much if so. So on some angles maybe the foiling boat is a little bit faster. On other angles Jean Le Cam is able to kind of beat into the wind sharper and doesn't have to be, you know, too careful with very high speed hitting something and all those type of factors. So there aren't a lot of conditions, let's say, where you can really compare the two boats to each other on a very equal footing, kind of sailing the same and really testing the foils against non-foils without all these other factors interfering. And yeah, if you're interested in that, if you want to like think about this more, I think this is a great video to watch a few times and kind of really, you know, wrap your head around what exactly is happening and what the foils are really doing. So enough about that. On to the weather predictions and looking at the fleet and everything that's going on right now. So the first thing that I think is really fun to think about is that at this moment, when I'm looking at this, we see that Jean Le Cam in fourth again. So even though, as I just said, Boris was quite a bit ahead of him at some point, about 2 miles or something ahead, Jean has managed again to regain the advantage. And so it's interesting to see, you know, a foiling boat and a non-foiling boat, you know, dueling it out, really duking it out in the Southern Ocean, and seeing that, at least for this moment again, Jean has put himself again in front of Boris. Might be different again, of course, a few hours from now, but it's cool to see that they're so close to each other, and even though their boats are vastly different, they're both, you know, really tactically using them very well, and they keep kind of exchanging the advantage. But let's start all the way in the front with Yannck today, and let's go to actually the moment in the weather right now. And so actually one of the few times in this entire race, I have to say, that the prediction so far of 3 days ago has almost perfectly come true. So this particular picture that we're looking at right now, with this kind of ring-shaped, with this kind of ring of high pressure around, with this kind of low pressure, it's actually two low pressures, but I think they'll merge into one at some point, kind of merging together, and creating this kind of big storm that is moving down again on the ice line. And we see that Yannck is right now kind of in the bottom of that system, having, you know, pretty strong winds already. But everywhere where it really matters, this prediction is exactly the same as it was 3 days ago. So that's kind of cool to see, and, you know, well done weather predictors and algorithms. So we see that Yannck is kind of in the bottom of this, and over the next few days, 2-3 days or so, this very strong system is going to come down. So this is actually 24 hours from now, and you can see that this you know, develops into a very, very strong low that's going to be right again in the middle of the course. And looking 24 hours ahead, it looks like many of the racers are going to be, you know, sailing kind of straight into that. They're still going to be a little bit in front of it in 24 hours, but not much later. They're all going to be, well, they're not so much going to head straight into it, but they're going to be following it, except for the two boats that are quite a bit more in front, which is of course Yannck and Charlie. So they are definitely going to end up right in the middle of it. And you know, as you can see right now, of course, Yannck is already in there. I think that the rest of the fleet, because they are kind of in low winds again right now, so they are right in this kind of patches of high pressure right now, not having so much wind, and as you can see, all having wind that is not really allowing them to make much distance on the race course, so their boat speeds might be quite okay. You know, not super fast, but you see that they're doing 15 knots. Isabelle Joschke, we see Geraldo Pedotte doing 10 knots right now. We see Boris and Jean Le Cam both around 8 knots of boat speed right now. So not standing still by any means. I'd be lucky to do this type of speeds with my boat, but their direction is really unfavorable, and we see that Jean again with his non-foiling boat, and this particular boat of him just very good at going upwind. So we see Boris at quite a, if we zoom in a little bit, we can kind of see that this should be Boris, I think. Yeah, so we see Boris here at a much lower angle, and we can see at the same time that Jean is at a much higher angle into the wind, even though they're more or less, you can see, in very similar wind condition. He can just aim a lot higher with this boat, which is one of the reasons why Jean keeps regaining his position, because whenever they just have the weather against them, his boat is just significantly faster and he can make more distance on the course. Now, for the rest of the fleet, we see the same thing. So all of these later, and many of them foiling boats, are all kind of having this, doing the same thing that Boris is doing. So their angle to the course is a lot lower than Jean. So we might see him, gain quite a few miles again on the rest of the fleet. And so I think he'll stay in fourth for the next 24 to 48 hours actually. But so we see Yannck here in front already in the storm, and the rest of the handsome threesome in front, getting more and more closer, and all still in a pretty comfortable lead. But what's going to happen? So if we look right now, it's sort of 12 in Amsterdam. If we go to tonight, so only about 12 hours later, we see that the center of the system, more or less over the position where Yannck is right now. Of course, he will be more to the west, and so it more or less looks like he's going to have, at least for the next 24 hours or so, wind that is from a favorable direction. So if we go another 5-6 hours again, we see that this zone to the west of him, and he'll be past the center, so there won't be so much of a problem for him, is all giving winds where he might have to go on a slight beating course, but he's going to have good enough wind direction to keep making more or less a straight down parallel to the ice line here. He might want to go a little bit higher in preparation here, so he has a little bit of space to fall off and go more to the south, but for him that's really not a problem. So I think that Yannck is going to get through this, I think, with flying colors. It's a strong storm, so you always have to consider possible damage, and he'll have to reef down. He won't be going 25 knots or anything. He'll probably be getting through this strong weather with no doubt very big typical Southern Ocean waves. So he'll be going through Point Nemo, which is essentially more or less here. So this is more or less the location of Point Nemo, about a day away from Yannck. So he's going to go right through the center of this storm, right as he goes through Point Nemo, and he's going to go by there relatively slow. So right now he's doing 11 knots because you're already in relatively strong winds, beating into it maybe a little bit, and I think that it will be rather similar. So he'll be going at speeds that are 12, 13, maybe 14 knots, but he has to keep his boat speed relatively mild. He'll have waves, he'll have strong wind, he'll be fully reefed down, especially throughout most of the day tomorrow. So great wind, but he won't be making epic speed. But he'll be, I think, the only one really able to head straight in the right direction. Now, if you look at the distance that Charlie is behind, and we go to the situation right now, so the wind not really favorable to Charlie because he's quite low on the ice line. So he doesn't have a lot of space. So he kind of has to be on this tack that he's on right now, beating strongly into the wind. So at a very low wind speed, 9.5 knots, he's maximally beating into the wind. But he has absolutely no space at all to go on the tack because he'll be right into the ice line almost right away. So he has to make some distance towards the north first before he can tack again. Probably about as high as the course line that you can see here from Yannck. So that's about the distance that he'll have to go higher before he can tack and go in the same direction that Yannck is going in right now. But that's going to take him probably about 10 hours or so. And if we jump ahead in time about 10 hours, what do we see? Well, that basically he's going to be in that point where he can make the tack, but the wind are going to be massively unfavorable. So he'll either have to keep going up and over kind of the center of this storm system that's forming, making the tack a little bit later, so going all the way over it. Because not so sensible to go right into it as it's kind of curling around here, giving him basically the wind right on his nose, which will be very unfavorable. Then if we go another 5 or 6 hours ahead, we see that the center obviously lowering, and if he's then in the position that Yannck's in or slightly higher, then of course he'll have a good course line to go over this. But so that means that Charlie is going to be staying on this particular tack, I think, for at least 10 to 12 hours maybe or so. And all that time, Yannck will be going in the right direction. So by the time that he's there, Yannck will be about the same distance, moved more to the west. So he's going to increase his lead quite significantly. Same goes for Thomas Rooz. So Thomas, if we look at the weather right now, is kind of at a nice line, but he has the wind full against him. He's kind of still in very low winds right now. He's doing 11 knots, but he's going to go into a bit stronger winds if we go about 10 hours ahead on his course. We see that it's changing definitely in his favor. He'll be going on a beam reach kind of in this direction, but he's still very, very far behind Yannck. And if we go about, let's say, 20 hours or so ahead, so that he can also reach that same kind of point where Yannck and Thomas are right now, then we see that the type of weather that he'll be encountering is quite favorable. And so he's not really going to have to deal with this particular storm. It will already have dropped quite significantly out of the way. And so Thomas is going to have good winds. And if he can keep this up, I think that him and Charlie are going to be very, very close together in about 14, 15 hours or so. They are both going to kind of head after Yannck, let's say, together. But I think that, yeah, he's about twice as far removed from Yannck right now as Charlie is. But Charlie going slow and not really making much distance westward, while Thomas is going straight west, and his situation wind-wise is only going to improve. So that means that both Thomas Rooz in linked out and the entire rest of this kind of following pack, I see that the Vendee Globe is calling them the Hunters. So let's call them the Hunters from now. The Hunters are going to go more or less together with Thomas to head west and go in pursuit of Yannck. But Yannick's going to get through the system very nicely and is going to build up quite a lead as the rest is dealing with this. And I think that this entire group, very cool by the way that Lewis Burton, after all his trouble, has made it and has found the connection again with this fleet. So very, very cool to see that he's really fully back in the race, very close to the ice line. That I would say is a little bit unfavorable right now. He needs to start making his way up a little bit also to really make use of this wind and be able to go a bit more to the west on these wind directions. But other than that, this entire group, 7-8 hours from now, they're going to start heading west in very favorable conditions. And I think that both Thomas and the rest of this fleet and Charlie in front are going to all end up quite close together. So we're going to see this entire group, that most of the group is already together, but we have like 3-4 boats that are kind of a little bit still separated. I think those are also all going to come in quite close. And so Point Nemo, kind of interesting to see that many of them. So here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, basically 11 boats that are going to pass through Point Nemo, very likely, really within a few hundred miles of each other. Many of them, I think at least 8 or 9 of them, within visual range of each other. So think about that, huh? 10,000 miles, over 20,000 kilometers of racing, both foiling and non-foiling boats, and some of them, new foiling boats, like Thomas Rooz is sailing, some of them older modified boats, but all within a few hundred miles of each other as they pass through this loneliest point on Earth. Then if we look a little bit more behind there, what do we see? Well, Armel has done it. It's cool to see that I predicted it good, because I said 4 days ago that he's likely going to end up overtaking Romain Attanasio. And back then Clarice Kramer was still a lot closer to Romain, so that part of what I predicted hasn't happened yet. But Armel consistently outpacing both of them again for the last 2 days, and has now actually overtaken Romain Attanasio. So that is very, very impressive to see. And many of you have also commented on the videos like, keep an eye on Armel, keep an eye on Armel. He is going to make the connection with the head fleet. And if he keeps outpacing them in the same way that he's been outpacing everybody else around him so far, then he might be the surprise of this race, fingers crossed that everything stays 100% on board. He is sailing absolutely amazing and just coming up from the back, cutting his way through everything ahead of him like a hot knife through butter. Really, really amazing to see. It must be a big morale boost for him also to, have achieved another takeover and skipping another spot now in place 13, and he's definitely going to make it to the top 10 if he's going to continue going on that. Interestingly to see that Clarice Kramer really ran away. So I mentioned that in the last show before we went on the Christmas break, that her and Roman had been in such a tight battle more or less throughout the entire race. I think that a little after Teda they kind of matched up, and they kept match racing each other all the way through here, more or less until Cape Levin, where suddenly Clarice was able to kind of catch another system right ahead, which Romain kind of missed, and she started running away for him, and has kept on to that. She's in very good winds right now. So if this is the situation weather-wise now, and for her also, this kind of stronger system below is going to come up a little bit, and it's going to give her a nice push right along the ice line, and that's going to be moving very nicely with her over the next 2 or 3 days. So I think in about a day or two she'll be a little ahead of where the rest of the fleet is now, and she has good wind along that whole range. So going to be a real challenge to see if Armel can outpace her on this particular part. So far he has been outpacing her, just like he has done with Armel. She has done 13.2 in the last 24 hours, and Armel has done 13.6. So even though he's a little bit slower right now, on the 24-hour range, he is consistently outpacing her also. So he's getting closer. And I would say probably another 3 days maybe until he gets, until he might be quite close to her, but we'll have to see what happens. But cool to see that all these different battles that are kind of going on in the fleet, with Lewis coming back, Armel doing this, and I do say that she's also, Clarice, on a real way towards the rest of the fleet. So Armel is outpacing everybody, but Clarice, for the most part, has also outpaced most of the leading pack, and so they are kind of getting closer together. So who knows? It's not beyond the possibility that both of them find their way back into the head of the fleet and make more progression into the top 10. So that'll be cool to see, I guess. Another girl in the top 10. Then we have, so these are actually latent boats that are actually not existing around the anti-meridian. And then here we find Pip Hare, who's in an interesting situation also again today, and also did something that I predicted, which is that she is about, let's hope she does. Let's not. But she is almost on top of Arnaud Bozerius, let's say. So she was really significantly behind him more or less the entire race. He was leading this kind of 4 wolf packs of her as they made their way into the Southern Ocean, and of course Pip was really behind. We've all seen this video when she kind of was feeling really bad, and we gave her the Seawolf support all together. These were the same 4 boats that she was just falling behind. And she has found her stride. The boat is really fast. She's sailing amazingly. First, of course, overtake her last two compatriots, Stéphane Larégion and Dida Costa, who are now way behind her and have since been passed by Jeremy Bijou. But Pip has not been. And so I predicted that Jeremy would overtake them actually today, because I said that 4 days ago, and I challenged Pip to stay ahead of him, and she has done so. So she is still significantly ahead while Tyrrell has passed both of them, and so he's actually now in the top 20 again, gone from place 21 to place 18, so very, very impressive. And Pip has put herself, it was still in place 17, but very, very close to Arnaud Bozeris on board of La Mécaline. And so, yeah, I think that if we look at 24-hour speeds, Pip is doing 16.2 and he's been doing 16.5, so still slightly faster, but over the last 2 days she's been faster because she just keeps getting closer to him. And she right now, I think, still has more wind, as this system, if we look how that's going to keep going, is more or less going to be chasing them for the next 2 days. And we actually have an update on that particular weather from Pip herself. So let's take a little look at that.
Christmas was a lot of fun, but fairly short-lived for me. I've still got the decos up, but straight back to work. We've got some fairly hard sailing to do. Got a nasty little front coming up behind me, which has been worrying me for quite a few days. And I thought I'd just share with you what my plan is, and you know what exactly that looks like to me, what's been on my mind. So here we go. Here is the weather overlaid onto the chart, so you can just see the outline of Tasmania there and New Zealand there, and I am the orange boat there. So this represents 9 o'clock UTC today, and this low pressure system is the one that I'm concerned about. So you can see it's behind me, but if we advance the forecast on, you see that the system is developing, so it's getting deeper, and the colours around it are going from yellow to orange, which means the breeze is going up, increasing around it. And then as we keep advancing forward, you can see that the low pressure drops down to the south, but here, do you see that band of orange? So that is the front associated with the low pressure, and there's a lot of wind on that front, and that is what I am running away from. So we can see, we just keep advancing forwards. You can see that that front is moving west to east, pretty much chasing me as I head down to New Zealand. So the aim of the game then is to stay ahead of that front. I think there could be 40, maybe 50 knots of wind in it at the worst place. And my routing at the moment puts me about 150 miles ahead of it, which isn't that much. There's not that much margin for error. So today I've been pushing Medallia as hard as I can, and I will carry on really for the next, it's going to be about 3 days of hard slog.
So that was Pip talking about this particular storm system that we're looking at right now. So she's kind of just past it, but as she mentioned, that's going to be, you know, kind of following them around a little bit as this giant system is, you know, sinking more towards Antarctica. But she's still going to be in that for a few days, and so she's going to try her damnedest to kind of stay ahead of this stream, giving her amazingly good wind for the next 3 days. And so the battle, I guess, between the two of them is really heating up. So it'll be interesting to see, you know, if she can overtake and actually get herself to 16th position in one of the oldest boats in the fleet, with one of the smallest budgets in the fleet. Really, really amazing work by our little Pip there somewhere off in the Southern Ocean. So I would say place your bets in the comment below as far as what you guys think will happen. I of course am going to say that Pip is going to overtake him, and I think that she will do it in the next 24 hours. So that's my bold prediction. Let me know your bold prediction in the comments, and let's see if we sea wolves know anything or if we're just talking. So then let's move to Shirel. Like I already mentioned, doing really well, now in 18th position, making good speed, 14 knots or so. Nice high speed, 16.2 over the last 24 hours, and still closing the gap obviously towards Pip and her compatriots, who are slightly under his speed consistently, not that much, but you know, definitely Shirel is just a very, very fast modern boat, and Jeremy Bijou obviously super skilled sailor. He knows how to do this. He's having good winds also, so right now he is, as you can see, still outside of these really strong winds. But as that system moves up, I think he is going to try his damnedest to kind of catch, you know, this little rift kind of in front of it. If I zoom back in the weather here a little bit, like if he can manage to get in there and kind of catch that system, that can give him a lot of speed, and he might be able to kind of, you know, overtake, you know, some of the boats in front of him. As he moves a little bit to the north of them, but it will be tough. You know, it will be slow going, and I think, yeah, with the situation now, if he gets close to them, it will be at least 5-6 days from now. Then behind him we have Kojiro Shirishi, actually sailing quite nicely. No more problems on board. He's not very fast, but just sailing a very consistent, beautiful race, so good on him. We have a little bit more higher, we have Manuel Casin. He moved very, very far to the north. I don't know what's going on there. Is he maybe thinking of sailing to Hobart? I don't know. I'll check up on that. Maybe something happened there during the Christmas period that I'm not aware of. Let me know in the comments or the chat here if you know. But it seems like he is making his way up very high, so he might be you know, on a course to maybe exit the race and go to Hobart. I don't know, hope not, but we'll have to see. And yeah, so switching real quick to this tracker to see the position of Initiative's Cur, because she of course also still ahead of Cape Leven, but no longer in the real map, so just want to check where she was. So yeah, we see more to the south, so we just talked about Mr. Shirishi. Then we have here, almost sort of just rounded the corner at Cape Leven, we have Clement and we have Miranda Maron, both doing nice speeds, 14 knots, 15 knots averages. So they're sailing quite fast, finally in good weather. And then all the way in the end of the fleet, of course, we have here Merci Sebastian Destremeux and Ari Heusela on board of Stark, and kind of right in the middle of them now we see Initiative's Cur sailing. So yeah, that's more or less the position of the race right now. So we know again where everybody is, more or less. And like I said, the weather looks pretty favorable. So we'll have to see what happens over the next 2 days or so to see if Yannck can really use this particular opportunity to really run away with the race. But for my part, I think that 2 days from now, we're going to see Yannck quite far ahead of the fleet. So right now he is about 73 miles ahead of Charlie Dallin, of course calculated in a western direction. I think in 2 days that's going to be maybe triple the distance of that. So by then he'll have let's say between 250 and 300 mile lead as far as I can see, and we'll see all of the other boats in the fleet right behind him, very, very close together, probably in eyesight of each other. That's my prediction for now. And so that's it for the sailing part today. I actually also wanted to include an art part in this particular episode. So, you know, for those of you who are absolutely not interested in, you know, the finer things of life, let's say you just want to get the sailing news, this is the end of the sailing news for this episode. But many of you have commented that lately I haven't put any art in the show and that I should really bring that back. And so as there's a new year starting, and of course I'm trying to, you know, professionalize the show slowly on. I'm going to try to, you know, include art in a regular way in the show, because apparently many of you are really enjoying, you know, just seeing new art. It's always nice to kind of, you know, get inspired. For those of you who are maybe making art yourself, it's always nice to see art and experience new art. And as I am an art dealer by trade, it's also nice for me to just you know, show you some beautiful things. I showed you the atelier of several of my artists you know, in previous videos. Even made a kind of tour through one of the ateliers of Michel Port a while back. Had very nice reactions, and actually talking to several of you nice sea wolves to actually maybe in the process of buying something from him also. So that's very nice to kind of make those connections also. And so today I want to show you also one beautiful art piece that I brought home especially so I could show it to you guys today. So here we go. Since we are all salty sailors, I thought I'd start with the ultimate salty sailor, Popeye. So obviously I'm in contemporary art, and this is a very cool modern piece by Van Apple called Popeye, and very cool, very nice for a location like this. It's printed on aluminium debond and also sprayed with diamond dust, so it's very hard to see on the camera, but you put a light over this and it'll just shimmer on every side. And of course the Campbell soup instead of the spinach is a big artistic nod to the greatest pop art of them all, Andy Warhol. So I hope you enjoyed that. That's almost it for the show. We also have the Christmas New Year auction going on for the assigned Seawolf 1 foam boat that I used as an example in one of the earlier videos. Having a lot of fun with this. The current bid is actually at €100, so half of that goes to Initiative Skur, half of that goes to, you know, Seawolves to help build the channel. So a good, nice, you know, good cause for the end of the year and Christmas. And so that's the status. If you want to bid, if you want to take part in this little Seawolf contest, just send an email to contact@seawolvestv.com, and there's a post on the website. You can look it up, where there's, you know, detailed pictures of this, so you can see what it's like and some more information. So you know, thank you all for participating in that. Okay, that's it for the show today. Thank you all very much again for watching. Looking forward to do another one tomorrow. And make sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. I actually got a question from somebody who says, Florian, you keep talking about this notification bell, but where is this bell? Well, how it works is when you click the subscribe button, when you're clicking it, there appear these kind of 3 bells next to the button, and those are like, I want all notifications, you want, you know, specialized by YouTube notifications, or no notifications. And so if you hit the top bell of the 3, which has all notifications, that means that whenever I put something new on the channel, whether that be a post, I mean, I never really post, but whether it's a video or any other thing, whenever I add something to the channel, you will get an email notification that says Seawolves has put something new on the channel, with a link straight for that. Or if there's a new premiere, for example, like today, I think 30 minutes in advance, you'll get an email, or if you're on YouTube, you get like a pop-up notification that says, hey, 30 minutes from now, another Seawolves episode is going to go live, and you can join the chat now if you want. So that's how the bell works, for those of you who maybe, you know, didn't get that right away. For all the other information, go to seawolvestv.com. Of course, also for our amazing Seawolves store with shirts, hoodies, flags almost coming. I hope that they will arrive somewhere this week, and then I can put them on the website also. So for those of you who want to fly a proud Seawolf flag on their boat, so we can all recognize each other on the water, they are coming to the store. Worry not, they'll be there soon. And that's it for the show today. So have a beautiful few more days in 2020. I think many of us are like, 2020, let's be done with 2020 and go to a new year, and hope that it's a lot better than 2020 was. I'm definitely, you know, one of those. Let's get this year over with and get to the next year and make that amazing. So have a great day, and we'll do another update tomorrow with some delicious coffee. Ciao.